Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi LiveNoding. In this episode, we're gonna take a look at the creations of kind of like a circular fountain setup. It's basically inspired by these fountains that I saw in Singapore. You probably have seen some of this. This one is particularly interesting. This one is, I think, near the Marina Sands Bay, and this one I cannot remember, but it's in one of the shopping center. So yeah, this is the setup that I have at the moment. It's basically I'm using Blender Fluid, but with Flip Fluid the results will be a lot better. I haven't tried it, but you can see we have this some kind of array of inflow objects, and I'm basically using a very simple animation node setup here. And you probably find it, if you find it easy, then you can skip this, but I'm gonna do it from scratch anyway. So I'll take you through my logic. So save this as circular fountain setup. This is animation nodes, and so you need to have animation nodes. But anyhow, let's start with our inflow objects. For my inflow, I will be using a cylinder, and just make it small and something like that. I'm using cylinder because with cylinder you can easily tell the axis. And so if we are using like a fluid inflow, we can turn on local coordinates, and with inflow velocity we can tell which direction it's gonna shoot. In this case, I wanted to shoot in the z-axis. So if we actually rotate, if we rotate this guy in locally, you can see where the water will be shoot out. Okay, so I'm gonna reset the rotation, Alt R. Okay, so we have this thing. You can use array modifier maybe to do this, but I will be using animation nodes to do the duplications for a lot of reasons, because you can easily make variations. So if I test it now using a fluid domain object, fluid domain, leave leave the setting as it is, and then we just do, actually this should be the domain. Okay, domain. So I have a previous simulations. I'm gonna override it, just bake. You can see our fluid is shooting up. It's actually quite strong at the moment. It's pretty strong, and I can reduce it to 5 again. So go back to our domain, stop our cache. I can prove it to you if we just rotate this like that and bake it again. It's gonna shoot based on directions of the cylinder. So that's cool. This is also still pretty strong, but that's okay. So we have our inflow with directional ability and our domain fluid. Let's now jump into animation nodes. So the idea here is very, very simple. You want to have instance objects, and you grab the inflow, select the inflow object, the cylinder, and then we want to duplicate it in a circular manner. So for that we have distribute matrices, and we are dealing with matrices value, so we want to use matrix out. So this plugin, we have this grid matrix, linear. We can choose the circular. So this should get plugged into that guy and also plug into the instance. So magically we have this five instance objects. We can adjust it as much as you want, and the radius also. This is the control that I was talking about. I think that's kind of cool. Okay, leave the segment as it is. Let's make it 8, and radius we can control. It doesn't matter for now. Make sure this is all tick. We need to copy the whole thing with the fluid simulations. So this guy have fluid inflow assign, and all these instance also. So it's gonna shoot up, but we want to have a bit more control, so we want to perhaps do something here. There is a transform matrix, but there is also math. So this is the one that we're gonna use, matrix math, and we're gonna use compose matrix. I believe this should be correct. And control the rotations this way. So you can see, you can already tell, if I do it like this, the water is gonna spin. So that's kind of an idea. But I don't know the result, how it's gonna look. So let's quickly make adjustment. Make the domain a bit larger. And simply bake it out. So our resolutions is the default, and it's pretty small, 45/65. By default, it's preview. But you can already see the result can be pretty cool. Switch this to final, a bit more high res, which is this resolution here. So it's a bunch of fluid shooting up. Like I said, this one is pretty strong. Maybe we can stop this and go back to our original inflow, set it to 3, and here select this, tap U, reset source data. So it's gonna reset our instance object. So let's rebake. Okay, still shooting pretty strong. Well, maybe we can just adjust the rotations a little bit. That's it. And reduce this a bit more, 1.5. Let's actually try angle this a little bit. Stop the cache, bake it again. So you can see this is pretty fast. Okay, that's pretty cool. See, even with such a simple adjustment, you can get a different result. And imagine if you just like you animate the rotations with a sine wave, you're gonna get quite an interesting result. So a lot of fountain setup looks pretty cool because of this kind of procedural setup. It's actually pretty basic. Well, in computer graphics, it should be easy enough. So if we reset this one not as strong, so it's gonna curve. So the fluid is supposed to curve. I have a feeling I just make the radius a bit larger. Stop the cache and scale this SZ. Bake it again. It's almost interactive. Okay, this time, as we increase the resolutions, the fluid is also expecting much higher resolutions, not just 65, but now it's shooting kind of what I want. Well, I can angle this a little bit more, stop the cache, make this a bit smaller, bake. The fluid is very, very strange. Sometimes you cannot always tell, you cannot predict the result. It's just the nature of fluid. Well, actually, bake this. I can probably increase this to 85. 85 is still pretty fast. If I'm not wrong, Blender Fluid is CPU only, and CPU is pretty fast on a Mac. But the Flip Fluid support GPU calculations, so that might be a little bit faster to do the baking. I see, that's interesting. This is weird. It's lots of fluids meeting in the center. But you get the idea, right? We want to have that kind of circular setup. So it makes me really curious, right? If we save this, and I will angle this inflow and then kind of rotate it that way, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen now? It's a. Do you think we're gonna get some kind of like a torque or something? You know, maybe. This will create a cyclone of water. So I think, yeah, with fluid, if you know a little bit of procedural concept, it's gonna help a lot. In terms of being able to experiment really quickly. Or one thing about fluid, once the inflow is covered with fluid, sometimes you lost the velocity somehow. You need probably a stronger inflow velocity, otherwise it's just gonna stop based on experience. But it's all just trying it out. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna keep baking this, but I'm gonna stop the video here. Hopefully this is kind of inspiring. You can test this setup yourself. Circular is interesting, and when you start to animate all this array inflow, you can get a much more interesting fluid. Not like not a basic one, but it's more like rhythmically you can control it, animate it in a much more interesting way. So hopefully this is useful. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.